May 8th, 2016, Toledo police get a call that 5 shots have been fired at the Lyric Lounge, and that one person is bleeding on the ground. The Lyric Lounge was a popular drinking spot in North Toledo, Ohio that occasionally had more than its share of violence and mayhem. It was a busy bar and grill that stayed open late. When officers arrived at the Lyric Lounge, they saw a 36-year-old Eugene Blackman on the ground bleeding from multiple gunshot wounds to the back and chest. There was a crowd of people gathered on the street. Many had seen the shooting and were filming with their cameras and posting. Eugene Darius Michael Blackman was born on June 10, 1979. His grandfather owned a store in West Toledo that had been in business for over 50 years. He owned various properties and would also flip houses on the side. He had become fairly wealthy. Eugene's grandfather died when he was just 9 years old in 1988. Friends and family would call him Iceman or Cube as a nickname. He was popular for his playful personality and big smile. He learned how to flip houses from his grandfather and bought his first commercial property at 18 years of age. Over time, he became successful at it and was financially stable. Eugene had 4 kids and was considered a good father by his children's mothers. He was considered a good provider. He took pride in being with his kids and loved them all. Eugene was considered a rock that everyone in his family could depend on, a role model. The detectives took a statement from a woman who was sitting in the car with Eugene during the shooting. She told the police that as they sat, she saw someone walking up from behind the rear driver's side of the car and asked Eugene, "Who is this walking up on you?" just before the 5 shots were fired through the driver's side window. She stated that there were no words or conversation between Eugene and the shooter. He had just walked up and fired 5 shots at Eugene. Several witnesses told the police about a man wearing a white shirt and dark pants that they had seen running from the scene of the shooting. A BOLO was issued, and Toledo police spotted a vehicle matching witness description and attempted to conduct a traffic stop. But instead of stopping, the driver of the car led police on a high-speed chase through the streets of Toledo, reaching speeds of over 100 miles per hour. His refusal to pull over made police suspicious that he had been involved with the shooting. Eventually, the suspect abandoned the car and ran down an alley. Police saw that he was wearing a white shirt and dark pants that matched witness description. The suspect was apprehended and identified as 22-year-old Telly Hopings. In Telly's car, police recover an empty gun case and .380 caliber ammunition, but no gun. 2 witnesses who saw the shooting were brought to the arrest scene, and both witnesses identified Telly as the man they saw do the shooting. Telly is arrested and taken in for further questioning. His bond was set at $1 million. Eugene is pronounced dead at St. Vincent's Hospital. This reclassifies the case as a homicide. Police obtain footage from cameras surrounding the scene of the crime and are able to identify a man pacing back and forth behind Eugene's car and then walking up to the car from the driver's side rear and shooting 5 shots into the driver's side window at Eugene. But the footage wasn't clear enough to identify the face of the shooter. When questioned about the shooting, Telly denied being at the Lyric Lounge even though witnesses had placed him there as the shooter. He stated that he ran because he didn't know who was chasing him and was afraid to stop. The next morning, a foot search was conducted along the route that Telly had been seen fleeing after the shooting, and a Walther PK .380 semi-automatic pistol was recovered on the grass alongside the road. The serial numbers matched the gun case that was found in Telly's car. The gun was also a match for the .380 ammunition that had been recovered. Telly was confronted with the new evidence against him and questioned further about the murder of Eugene Blackman. It took some time, but eventually Telly admitted to doing the shooting because Eugene had killed his cousin, Ronnie Hopings, in front of his kids, and then also came to the hospital afterwards. Ronnie had married Eugene's ex in 2015. The two got along well and respected each other. They were a blended family working to raise their kids. They were considered friends. 3 months earlier, on March 16, Ronnie Hopings was shot in front of his house in West Toledo. Ronnie was on his way home with his 3 children in the car with him. As he approached his home, he noticed an unfamiliar car in front of his house, but thought nothing of it. As Ronnie and his children walked toward their house, a man came from behind the house and shot Ronnie. Ronnie was pronounced dead at the scene. The Blackman family has stated that Eugene came to the hospital after the shooting to show respect and support, not to mock Eugene. They cannot understand why Telly Hopings thought that Eugene shot Ronnie. Less than 24 hours after Eugene Blackman's murder, a triple shooting involving Lamont Hopings and 2 others occurred. In broad daylight, He was sitting with friends on a porch when a man pulled up and started shooting. Lamont Hopings and his two friends were wounded but survived. The shooting was unsolved. Lamont was Telly and Ronnie's uncle. On May 16th, Eugene Blackman was buried in a funeral with a horse-drawn carriage. On May 17th, the Toledo Fire Department was called to Ronnie's mother's house. The house was set on fire. It was determined that the house had been set on fire intentionally, making it an arson case. The arson was unsolved but assumed to be related to the Ronnie Hopings-Eugene Blackman case. On May 19th, Telly was charged with the murder of Eugene Blackman, and another fire occurred at the Belmont store, which was owned by Jennifer Blackman. This fire was also determined to be an arson. It was unsolved. On May 25th, yet another fire occurred, this time on Trenton Avenue on a house owned by Esther Willis, who was one of the 3 people shot in the Lamont Hopings triple shooting. This fire was also unsolved. On June 6th, there were 2 more arson fires, both on Trenton Avenue. On June 7th, there was yet another arson fire at a house on Belmont Street down the street from the store, an unsolved arson. On June 16th, city leaders brought the families together to talk about the feud. They declined to discuss what they had talked about behind closed doors, but both families agreed they had suffered enough and that the violence had to stop. A truce was formed. On January 30, 2018, Telly Hopings took an Alford plea which acknowledges that the evidence is sufficient to convict the defendant, but that the defendant refuses to enter a guilty plea and is ready to accept punishment. He was convicted of murder and sentenced to life in prison. He will be eligible for parole after 18 years. To this day, the murder of Ronnie Hopings is still unsolved. It remains open and is not a cold case. In 2017, the Lyric Lounge was shut down as a public nuisance by a judge and later reopened under the name The Antidote. The Antidote was then shut down by a second judge in 2020 for the same exact reason.